If you want a man to crave you on every level, it doesn't start in the bedroom. It starts in the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. It begins with the level of self-respect you hold like an unshakable standard, not a temporary performance. Self-respect is not about pretending to be confident, nor is it about acting aloof to attract attention. It's about building a deep relationship with yourself that radiates from the inside out. A woman who genuinely respects herself speaks differently, walks differently, and chooses differently. She does not beg for attention. She commands it by the way she exists. When a woman possesses self-respect, she becomes a mirror to a man's own value system. She becomes the standard by which he begins to measure his own behavior. Why? Because she doesn't need him. She chooses him. A man is biologically wired to chase, to conquer, to pursue. But the modern dynamic is often upside down, with women overcompensating, over-explaining, overextending. That's not attraction, that's desperation. And nothing repels desire more than the scent of emotional neediness. When you remove the need to be chosen and begin to operate from a place of worthiness, everything changes. You no longer wonder why he's distant. You no longer overanalyze his words. You begin to realize that your energy is the prize, not his attention. A woman with self-respect sets boundaries without fear. She doesn't apologize for having standards. She doesn't bend herself to fit into spaces that are too small for her soul. She doesn't silence herself to avoid conflict, nor does she tolerate disrespect under the disguise of love. A woman like this becomes rare, and what is rare becomes valuable. Men are not addicted to what is easy. They are addicted to what challenges them to rise. And nothing challenges a man more than a woman who knows exactly who she is and refuses to shrink. Self-respect shows up in the silence after being mistreated. Instead of lashing out or pleading, the woman who respects herself walks away not to punish, but to preserve. Her absence is louder than any argument. Her silence becomes a storm of reflection in his mind. And that space she creates by choosing herself over chaos begins to intoxicate him. He wonders why she didn't shed. He starts questioning his own behavior because she didn't explain herself. She simply exited the scene. That's power. But self-respect isn't loud or arrogant. It doesn't demand attention. It attracts it naturally. It's not in the words you speak to others. It's in the silent dialogue you have with yourself. What do you tell yourself when no one validates you? Do you crumble in the absence of attention, or do you continue to show up as your highest self? The energy you hold when you're alone determines the power you radiate when you're with someone else. A man can feel that difference. He may not know how to name it, but he knows how it makes him feel. He feels safe, challenged, intrigued. He feels like he's dealing with someone who isn't afraid of loss because she knows her value can't be negotiated. The reason self-respect makes a man crave you is because it ignites his own masculine desire to pursue. When you elevate yourself, he must rise to meet you or lose access. And this isn't a game. It's not manipulation. It's alignment. You become less available to chaos and more open to consistency. You begin to attract a different level of presence from a man because you've established what is acceptable and what is not through threats, but through behavior. And let's be honest, men crave a woman who can walk away. It keeps the fire alive. It keeps the pursuit active. When you're overly available, always accessible, always trying to prove your worth, the mystery dies. But when you're selective with your time, intentional with your energy, and grounded in your standards, he starts to feel like he's winning a prize every time he's with you. He doesn't feel entitled to your body, your time, or your heart. He feels honored to have access to you. That's how the addiction begins. The woman who respects herself doesn't flaunt her body hoping for validation. She presents herself with grace and confidence. knowing that true intimacy isn't just physical. It's emotional, spiritual, energetic. She knows that a man's deepest craving isn't skin, it's safety, it's stimulation, it's depth. And all of that begins with how she treats herself. If she tolerates disrespect, he will too. If she doubts her own worth, he will feel that energy. But if she sees herself as rare, sacred, and powerful, he has no choice but to see her the same way. Self-respect is the foundation of sexual magnetism because it removes the desperation from your energy. It removes the chase from your side and places it back where it belongs, in his. And the more a man feels that he must work to maintain your presence, the more his emotional and sexual energy becomes tied to you. He starts associating your voice with peace, your touch with worthiness, your absence with discomfort. You become a need, not a want. You become the place he comes back to, not because you begged, but because you became irreplaceable. Men don't become addicted to looks, they become addicted to energy. Physical attraction might catch the eye, but it is your emotional vibration that captures the soul. A man may be pulled in by how you look, but he stays when he becomes entangled in how you feel. The truth is, sexual chemistry doesn't just live in the body. It lives in the energy you carry, the unspoken signals you send through your presence, your confidence, your emotional state. And if you're filled with anxiety, insecurity, or unresolved pain, he feels it. Whether he's aware of it or not. Just like perfume lingers on the skin, your energy lingers in the air long after you've left the room. It's invisible, but it's unforgettable. When a woman learns to control her emotional state, she becomes unforgettable. She becomes the safe space in a world full of noise. She becomes the calm in the chaos of his life. That's what makes a man come back. Not the words she said, not even the physical experiences they shared, but the emotional imprint is more addictive than anything physical. You see, men get emotionally addicted when a woman makes them feel something they can't explain. It's that emotional high, that spiritual pull, that deep calm he only feels in her presence. And that begins and ends with her energy. But you can't carry that kind of energy when you're full of negative emotions. You can't seduce a man's soul when your own is clouded with fear, bitterness, or resentment. These emotions are heavy and they drag down your frequency. They turn you into someone who reacts instead of responds, someone who clings instead of attracts. When you're consumed by insecurity, you begin to seek constant reassurance. And that drains not only your power, but his desire. Desire thrives in space, it grows in mystery, but negative feelings shrink that space and replace it with tension. No man wants to feel like he's responsible for managing your emotions. He wants to feel your peace, not carry your pain. That's why learning how to process and release negative feelings is not just emotional work, it's seductive work. The more emotionally regulated you become, the more magnetic you are, because suddenly your presence becomes a healing place. You're not just another woman who needs validation, you become the woman who validates herself. That kind of presence is rare. It doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It doesn't lose itself in overthinking or emotional outbursts. It holds space. It observes. It speaks when necessary and listens when powerful. And that composure, that inner strength, that emotional clarity, those are the things that pull a man in deeper than physical touch ever could. Energy speaks louder than words. You could say all the right things, dress in the most attractive way, act sweet and charming, but if your energy says, I'm not enough, he'll feel that. He may not consciously know what he's sensing, but his spirit will recoil from yours. Men are naturally drawn to women who are emotionally whole because that energy gives them peace, and peace is the most seductive feeling in the world to a man who's tired of the world's noise. A man doesn't crave a woman who reacts to everything. He craves a woman who remains centered, who doesn't let circumstances dictate her behavior, who knows how to return to herself no matter what life throws at her. When you overcome your negative feelings, when you master your mind, your emotions, and your inner world, you create a field of energy around you that draws him in like gravity. He may not be able to explain it. He may even try to resist it, but something about your presence sticks with him. Your laugh, your voice, the way you respond instead of react, the way you move through life with grace instead of drama. These become the things he craves when he's alone. He begins to associate you with elevation, with peace, with clarity. That is what makes you addictive. It's not the curve of your body. It's the curve of your energy. Soft, powerful, untouchable. And it's not about perfection. You don't need to be emotionless. You don't need to suppress how you feel, but you must learn to guide your emotions instead of being guided by them. That's the key. Because emotional intelligence is deeply attractive. When a man sees that you can sit with your feelings without exploding, that you can express your truth without destroying connection, that you can stand in your power without trying to control him, he begins to view you as a woman of immense value. You become the peace in his storm. You become the breath he didn't know he was holding. And slowly your energy becomes a drug. Not because you were trying to be something you're not, but because you finally became everything you are without letting negativity dim your light. That emotional clarity, that inner balance, that subtle confidence. Those are the traits that haunt him when you're not around. Those are the things he replays in his mind, wondering why no one else feels the same, because no one else has learned to master their emotional energy the way you have. That's how the addiction is formed, not through games, not through manipulation, but through mastery of self, through emotional stability, through the quiet, powerful energy that makes him feel alive, safe, and addicted all at once. There's a difference between a woman who uses her body and a woman who knows how to use her mind. A man may be drawn to the physical, but if his mind isn't stimulated, he will eventually drift away, no matter how beautiful you are. Sexual addiction isn't born from how you look. It's rooted in how you think. The most magnetic women are not the most perfect. They're the most present. They're the most intentional. The most mentally engaging. When a woman knows how to engage a man's mind, she becomes unforgettable. She becomes the woman who lingers in his thoughts at 2 a.m., not because of what she wore, but because of how she made him feel about himself when she spoke. Most women underestimate the power of mental stimulation. They focus so much on looking good, but forget that men are wired for challenge, intrigue, and unpredictability. What a man craves more than anything is a woman who can enter his mind, not through manipulation or ego games, but through genuine depth. He wants to be met where he hides his thoughts, where he stores his fears, where he builds his dreams. When a woman can access those places and make him feel both seen and safe at the same time, she becomes more than a lover. She becomes a fixation. That is where the addiction begins. To mentally stimulate a man, you have to be more than just available. You have to be interesting. And being interesting is not about being loud or dramatic. It's about being layered. A woman with layers keeps a man exploring. She doesn't lay all her thoughts out at once. She lets him uncover her gradually. She speaks with intention. She listens with presence. She asks questions that challenge his perspective, and when she speaks her own truth, she does it with grace and certainty. Her mind becomes a playground where he finds both excitement and peace. Mental stimulation also means being unpredictable, not in your behavior, but in your conversation. Say things that make him pause. Offer insights that make him think. Bring up ideas that shift the way he sees the world. You don't need to impress him with facts. You just need to make him feel something new. When a man feels mentally refreshed in your presence, he doesn't look for escape. He leans in. He starts associating your voice with inspiration. And soon your presence becomes his favorite place to rest his thoughts. But this level of connection doesn't come from pretending to be something you're not. It comes from developing yourself. Read more, learn more. Grow in silence. Dive into your passions and fall in love with your own mind. Because the woman who is mentally stimulating is the woman who is mentally fulfilled. She's not looking for someone to complete her. She's not molding herself to be what he wants. She's too busy becoming what she wants. And that kind of woman becomes irresistible, not because she's trying, but because she's living. A man becomes mentally addicted to a woman who challenges him without belittling him, who supports him without losing herself, who encourages him to rise not with criticism, but with conversation. She helps him uncover new parts of himself, not by fixing him, but by being fully expressed in her own evolution. Her presence doesn't just entertain him, it transforms him. And that transformation becomes the reason he keeps coming back. He's not just drawn to her, he needs her energy because it nourishes something deeper than lust. And let's talk about sensuality. It's not about being overly sexual. It's about being aware. A mentally stimulating woman knows how to use her voice, her eye contact, her timing. She knows the art of subtlety. She doesn't need to reveal everything. She lets her words hang in the air just long enough to leave him wondering. She uses silence as power, mystery as magnetism. She doesn't seek constant attention because she's too focused on creation. She knows that the mind is the most erotic organ, and she knows exactly how to play it like an instrument. The connection deepens when she listens more than she speaks. Not because she lacks things to say, but because she understands that presence is power. When she listens, she's not just waiting for her turn to speak, she's absorbing. She's watching his eyes, his tone, his energy. She sees him in ways he doesn't even see himself. And when she speaks, it cuts straight to his core, not in a confrontational way, but in a way that makes him feel understood, exposed, and grateful all at once. That is how a man becomes addicted. His body might respond to a touch, but it's his mind that forms the obsession. It's not about what you show him, it's about what you awaken in him. And you do that not by becoming what you think he wants, but by becoming fully, unapologetically, expansively yourself. The more depth you develop, the more space you hold for meaningful conversation, the more mentally alive you become, the more addictive you are. Because in a world of surface level connections, a woman who engages the mind becomes a drug he can't put down. Sexual energy is not just about touch. It's a frequency, a vibration, a current that flows from your presence, your confidence, your inner sense of worth. When you understand the power of your feminine energy, you begin to realize you don't need to chase attention. You command it. Not through force, not through trying to be someone you're not, but by anchoring yourself so deeply in your own sensual energy that it becomes undeniable. A woman in her feminine power doesn't have to do too much. She is too much in the best possible way. She knows the magnetic pull isn't in what she gives away, but in what she holds back, in what she carries inside her with quiet confidence and calm strength. A man becomes addicted to a woman's sexual energy not because she is overt, but because she is aligned. She is connected to herself on such a deep level that her mere presence ignites something within him. She doesn't need to flaunt or perform. She radiates. That radiance is not about looks. It's not even about seduction. It's about wholeness. It's about being grounded in your own sensual essence without apology. Feminine energy is naturally receptive, magnetic, fluid, and creative. It's that soft power that draws in everything it desires without chasing. And that energy, when truly embraced, becomes irresistible. But here's the truth. Many women have been taught to disconnect from that power. They've been conditioned to be overly masculine, always doing, always proving, always competing. That energy may work in the workplace, but in the dynamic of intimacy, it kills polarity. Polarity is what drives attraction. A masculine man is drawn to a deeply feminine woman because she brings him into a space he cannot reach alone. She opens the door to the emotional, to the sensual, to the spiritual. She doesn't push. She invites. And in that invitation, he finds a home for his soul. When a woman operates from her feminine core, her energy does the work for her. Her touch feels electric because it carries intention. Her gaze lingers with meaning. Her words drip with emotion. Her silence even speaks volumes. She's not trying to impress. She's expressing. And in that expression, she becomes unforgettable. She becomes the memory that flashes through his mind in moments of stillness. She becomes the feeling he chases, not because she gave him something external, but because she awakened something internal. That's the addiction. That's the real seduction. Now, to access this kind of energy, you must feel safe in your body. That means healing shame, releasing guilt, letting go of the belief that your sensuality is something to hide or tone down. Feminine energy is not dirty, it's divine. It's the energy that creates life, that heals, that nurtures, that seduces, not through performance, but through presence. When you become fully present in your body, when you move with intention, when you speak from your heart, when you breathe deeply and let yourself feel, your energy shifts. You no longer need to try. You become. A woman who is sexually magnetic doesn't force anything. She understands rhythm. She understands flow. She doesn't rush intimacy. She lets the space build. She creates anticipation not through teasing, but through tension. That space between words. That pause in her sentence. That breath she takes when she looks away. That moment she leans in and then pulls back just enough to keep him wondering. She isn't playing games, she's playing energy. She's attuned to how things feel, not just what they look like. And that awareness makes every interaction with her feel like a dance. And what's most powerful? She doesn't need anyone to validate this power. She doesn't use it for manipulation. She owns it for herself. Because her sensual energy is not something she uses to get something. It's something she honors. It's sacred. She protects it. She only shares it with those who can receive it, respect it, and rise to meet it. That selectiveness makes her even more magnetic, because what is rare becomes valuable. A man doesn't crave what's easily available. He craves what's felt but not fully owned. The woman who knows how to keep a piece of herself reserved, a mystery never fully solved, becomes the obsession. This energy cannot be faked. It can't be copied from someone else. It comes from within, from embodiment, from embracing all of you, your softness, your wildness, your intuition, your desire. It's in the way you walk into a room with poise. It's in the way you speak with intention. It's in the way you say no without fear and yes without hesitation. It's in the way you allow yourself to receive pleasure, love, admiration without shrinking or over-explaining. You become a magnet for everything you desire because you're no longer resisting your own nature. When you're grounded in your feminine sexual energy, you're no longer chasing attraction. You're creating it. Your presence becomes intoxicating. Not because of how you look, but because of how deeply you feel. You no longer seek to be chosen, you are the choice. Not because you demand it, but because your energy leaves no room for doubt. A man doesn't just want you, he feels drawn to you, compelled by you, addicted to you. Not for what you offer externally, but for the energy you carry silently, confidently, powerfully. Men are naturally drawn to what they can't fully possess or figure out. This isn't about playing games or being deceptive. This is about maintaining your mystery, your individuality, your boundaries. It's about knowing that your greatest power lies in what you don't reveal too soon, what you hold back, and what you let someone earn. When a woman gives all of herself right away, emotionally, mentally, physically, she removes the depth of discovery that creates emotional addiction. The key is in giving enough to spark interest, enough to light the flame, but never enough to let the fire burn out. A man becomes sexually and emotionally addicted to a woman when she is both available and elusive, warm yet untouchable. He becomes captivated when there is something left to explore, something he can't quite grasp. A woman who understands this doesn't become distant, she becomes magnetic. She doesn't withhold out of fear, she withholds from a place of power. She's selective, not because she's cold, but because she knows her value. And she never gives her heart, her energy, or her body to someone who hasn't shown that they can hold it. The mystery is in the layers. The more he sees of her, the more he realizes there's more. She has depth, and depth is what pulls a man deeper into desire. That's what creates addiction, not just attraction, but emotional entanglement, where he begins to crave her energy, her essence, her spirit. This kind of mystery isn't about being confusing, it's about being complex. A man doesn't want a puzzle that frustrates him, but he's drawn to a woman who challenges him to rise, who reflects his own unhealed parts, who mirrors the potential of who he could become. That's why the feminine woman who embraces her complexity, her contradictions, her layers, becomes the woman he can't get out of his mind. She's the kind of woman who can be laughing one moment and deep in thought the next, the kind of woman who can be affectionate but also needs her space. The kind of woman who shares but never overshares. Her emotions are real but not chaotic. Her presence is grounding yet mysterious. Men want to feel like they've earned a woman's vulnerability. When you give it too quickly, it loses its sacredness. Vulnerability is not about dumping emotions. It's about gradually revealing your heart in a way that feels intimate, intentional, and trusting. When you maintain your mystery, you let him work for your trust, your attention, your time, and that work creates investment. People value what they work for. People treasure what they earn. When a man feels like he's had to dig a little deeper, lean in a little closer, and stay consistent over time just to get access to your inner world, he will not let go easily. He won't forget the feeling of uncovering pieces of you, layer by layer. Now, in the physical sense, mystery is even more powerful. Don't rush to give all of yourself sexually. The physical bond intensifies when it's matched with mental stimulation and emotional connection. Let your body be sacred, not because you revere intimacy, but because you revere it. When you reveal your sensuality, slowly he becomes attuned to your subtle signals. He starts noticing your breath, your silence, your glance, your voice. And that's where the addiction begins, not in what you give, but in what you suggest. The suggestion is everything. It leaves him wondering. It keeps him engaged. It makes him crave more, not just of your body, but of your mind, your energy, your attention. Mystery also lives in your ability to live fully without needing him. A woman who has a life outside of him is incredibly attractive. A woman with purpose, with passion, with routines and goals. She doesn't wait for a man to make her feel alive. She is alive. She brings him into her world without losing herself in his. That's the difference. She doesn't drop her hobbies, abandon her friends, or rearrange her entire life for him. She lets him earn a place in it. And in doing so, she becomes the woman who stands out. She becomes the rare one, the one who doesn't just blend in with the rest, but shines because of her sense of independence. There is something incredibly seductive about a woman who can walk away. A woman who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't over-explain. She knows that her silence has power, that her absence speaks volumes, that if a man loses her, he doesn't just lose a woman, he loses an entire experience. And that's the kind of loss that lingers. When you maintain your mystery, you become unforgettable. You create a gap he tries to fill with other people, other things, but it never quite feels the same because your energy was unique and he knows it. When you're too available, too predictable, too easy to reach, you become background noise. But when you stay grounded in your power, when you let a man wonder just a little, what's she thinking? What's she doing? Why does she feel so different? You become music to his soul, a rhythm he keeps coming back to, a melody he can't stop humming. You become his fixation, not because you did too much, but because you knew the art of doing just enough, the art of being present without being overly accessible, the art of letting him reach for you instead of throwing yourself at him. That balance is everything. It's where mystery is born, and mystery creates depth, and depth is where obsession lives. When he feels that he can't quite predict you, that he can't fully possess you, that he can't stop thinking about what makes you so magnetic, you have already won his mind, and the body always follows the mind. There's a certain kind of energy that radiates from a woman who knows her worth. It's in her walk, her posture, the way she speaks, the way she chooses to move through the world. This isn't about arrogance. It's about grounded confidence, the kind that doesn't scream for attention, but effortlessly commands it. A man becomes sexually addicted to a woman, not simply because of how she looks, but because of how she makes him feel about himself in her presence. When a woman embodies her divine confidence, when she stands in the truth of who she is and doesn't bend to accommodate someone else's insecurities, she becomes magnetic. She becomes unforgettable. And what truly ignites this addiction is the way her confidence allows a man to drop his guard while simultaneously keeping him on his toes. Confidence is sensual. It doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, and it doesn't compete. A confident woman doesn't need to prove her value because her energy already speaks it. She knows that being chosen isn't her goal. Being aligned is. She doesn't lose sleep over a man who fails to recognize her light because she knows that dimming herself to fit into a shallow connection would only rob her of the deeper intimacy she truly deserves. This level of confidence comes from doing the inner work. It comes from healing, from letting go of past validation loops, from no longer needing a man to complete her, but seeing him as an addition, not a necessity. And because of this, she operates from abundance, not desperation. When a man encounters this kind of woman, she affects him on a soul level. Her confidence isn't performative. It's not about being loud or dominant. It's about being solid. She's not shaken by his silence. She's not triggered by his distance. She's not begging for breadcrumbs because she's busy feasting on her own purpose. That inner self-respect turns into outer radiance. And that radiance is powerful. It draws a man in, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. He begins to crave her presence, not just her body. He starts to need her energy because being near her makes him feel more like a man, not less. And this is key. A confident woman never belittles a man. She doesn't emasculate him or control him. Instead, she inspires him to rise. She challenges him without criticizing him. She expects more, not because she's hard to please, but because she knows that love without standards isn't love. It's settling. This confidence also shows up in the way she handles rejection or disappointment. She doesn't crumble when things don't go her way because her identity isn't tied to anyone else's approval. She understands that not every connection is meant to evolve and that letting go isn't failure, it's alignment. That level of emotional maturity is rare, and anything rare is valuable. That's why a confident woman isn't easily replaced. She's not easily forgotten because she leaves a man better than she found him. She awakens something inside him, a deeper desire to grow, to lead, to provide, to protect. Not because she demands it. A confident woman also owns her sexuality without apology. She isn't ashamed of her desires, her needs, her body. She doesn't use sex as a tool to manipulate, nor does she fear its power. Instead, she views her sensuality as an extension of her divinity. She knows that when she opens herself to someone, she's not just offering pleasure, she's offering energy, and that energy is sacred. That's why she's selective. That's why she doesn't sleep with someone just to feel wanted, but because she wants it too. And when she decides to share herself, she does it fully, without holding back or pretending. That authenticity is intoxicating. It's not rehearsed, not filtered, it's real. And real is rare. Men become addicted to that kind of real. To the woman who shows up fully expressed, the woman who is soft yet fierce, who is nurturing yet independent, who can hold space for a man's vulnerability but doesn't tolerate emotional immaturity. That kind of balance is only possible when a woman is deeply confident. And that confidence doesn't come from her looks or external validation. It comes from knowing who she is, what she brings to the table, and what she will and won't accept. That clarity is powerful. That certainty creates safety. And emotional safety leads to emotional addiction, especially when combined with physical intimacy. Because then a man isn't just addicted to her body, he's addicted to how he feels in her presence. He feels seen, understood, and challenged. But this kind of confidence also includes silence. A woman of high value doesn't over-explain, doesn't argue to prove her worth. She knows that her peace is priceless, and she doesn't give it away to someone who thrives on chaos. She's okay walking away. And that scares some men. But the right men will be drawn even closer. Because confidence wrapped in feminine energy creates irresistible polarity. She doesn't chase, she attracts. She doesn't fight for love, she receives it from those who can meet her energy. She is the mirror of a man's potential, and if he's not ready, she lets him go with grace, not bitterness. That kind of emotional mastery is rare, and it becomes the very reason he comes back again and again, unable to forget the one woman who didn't need him, but chose him from a place of power.